Chapters 25, 26, and 27 of Shri Krishna, the Lord of Love, by Baba Premanand Bharati. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 25. In the forest grove of moonlight, where the river sweetly hummed, where the night bird's plaintive chant broke in ecstasy the silence, where the drooping flowers opened wide their sleep-kissed eyelids to the night, and beheld the wondrous vision of the dancing maids and Krishna. In that hour, when every maiden felt her heart grow big to bursting for the love that in her swelled up, in that hour, when every maiden saw beside her glorious Krishna, with his brow made fair with flowers, and his loins wreathed with lotus, when the heart of each sweet maiden, foolish because of pride, as she saw the one all beauteous, lightly treading at her side to the music of the dance. One there was of all those gopis, she the chiefest of them all, one who knew naught else but him. Every thought of self had vanished, every thought of aught but him. At his side she lightly stepped, nor felt the grass 'neath her feet, nor knew the strains of rapturous music that fell like wine upon each heart. All she knew was love was there, naught but this remembered she. Do the winds that came from hillsides, do the shadows that the trees did cast, did she whisper over and over that confession of her love, till overweighed by the sweet burden did the winds and languorous love chant and sigh, then die in silence. And the shadows of the trees trembled at the depth of love that the maid did whisper to them as he passed them in the dance. Radha was she, youthful, lovely, she, his playmate of the forest, she, with love look in her face, she, the queen of love among them, giving all and asking naught. By the mighty will of him she had come on earth to dwell, she who ever reigned with him in glory, she now walked with him on earth. She the fairest of these maidens, she the rarest of them all, knowing love in its intensity, living all its bliss. And when he, the Lord of Love, vanished from the dancing gopis, she, sweet Radha, with him vanished. And they wandered in the deep groves, these the twain, who in glory dwelt, she the loving, he the lover, both the blissful, both the purest. He the dew-kissed flowers gathered, twining them about the maiden, but the flowers in their beauty were not half as fair as she, and sweet Radha, pearl of maidens, gazed with love-light in her eyes, knowing naught was half so lovely as the hands that placed them there. Thus they roamed in shadowy moonlight, rested here in softened shadows, chanting love songs to each other, knowing naught but pure delight, till awearied with her roaming, Radha begged to cool her feet in the smiling waves of Jamna that she spied there in the moonlight. Krishna, greatest of all lovers, lightly stooped to lift the maiden, and in loving arms to bear her where the smiling waters rippled. But within the breast of Radha at that act pride sprang to being, and within that home of love vanity crept and nestled there. For a moment Krishna held her, then with lightning swiftness from her side he vanished. But in that twinkle of a moment Radha knew what her sin was, and aware of her enemy, the selfless love which was herself, her deity supreme, arose and quenched all thirst of vanity. Quickly gliding through the forest, she again did join the gopis, spying in the further distance Krishna, soothing one and all. To his side she lightly stepped, she the radiant, she, his heaven-mate, purged from sin and lightly clothed with the love that knew but him. Chapter 26. While the land of Vrindavan was rich in the love which Krishna flooded it withal, the heart of Kamsa, the brother of Devaki, was filled with fear for his life, for it was known to his quaking heart that the 8th child of Devaki still walked the earth, and also he knew that writ it was that the hand of that child would lay him low. Far and wide he sought the child, the boy, whom he felt was the God who had come to bring to the virtuous and lowly man peace, and sweep from the land the oppressor and tyrant. The marvelous deeds of Shri Krishna, his beauty and strength, the might of his love had been heralded far and wide, and all the then known world was turned towards the forest land of Brindaban, with expectant eye and thirsting heart. Forever the heart of man doth pant for and turn to the place where love doth dwell. When tales of Krishna's wonderful life and glorious deeds came to the ears of Kamsa, he felt that the boy whom Yasoda and Nanda reared as their own in sweet Brindaban was the child that he sought to kill when he came from the womb of Devaki, and when by the hand of fate itself he had been baffled. And the dull, hungry flame of hatred and anger rose like fire in this bad man's heart, and an atmosphere as of hell about him rose, and all his peace slipped to the dust, and his secret fear that like a coiled serpent had lain in silence now uncurled its length and lifted its head and darted here and there to strike the prey that aroused it from its slumber. And long he sat and meditated evil against the youth that he could not slay in spite of his kingship, for the name of Krishna was a balm to the hearts of all men who had ever heard it spoken, and though king he was and ruler over many, he knew that the strength of the fame of Krishna, the boy bred in Brindaban, more potency possessed than the name of Kamsa the king, for he was ruler over the bodies of men only. His name dwelt on the tongues of men who prattled with words alone, and those words embodied not the thought from which they sprang, words that praised where praises were not due, and applauded where it was not deserved. Men who dared not note the indignity of his motives and their results, nor discriminate between the righteousness of his action and his blood-dyed deeds, vexed his ears with fawning acclamations today because of his power, yet tomorrow blamed and hissed him out of sight. But Krishna was ruler over all hearts by the might of his wondrous love. He was the divine incarnation, the inner call, the satisfied softness that all felt, compelling all, yet demanding naught. Uncovered, frank, he stood forth, inviting all to look on him, to know and to love and be saved, too deep for the human understanding to measure, too large for human heart to embrace, yet acquainting each man with himself. This love, still untaught, still gazing on him who was all encased in love, all made of love, all teeming with love, they knew themselves of his creation and him their sovereign Lord. And Kamsa knew that by knowing him the world would boldly recoil from the sickening deeds of his cruelty, the foul plots of his life would be laid bare to all, and the world in rebellion would rise. And he knew too that he and his worldly powers as a weakling would be by the side of the cowherd Krishna. So among his counselors an edict went forth that festivities be held in honor of the bow on the 14th day of the lunar month, and that sacrifices in great abundance be made. He also said unto them that preparations be made, and pavilions be raised, and the arena cleared, and the amphitheatre festooned with flowers and banners, and proclamations were issued that all the inhabitants of his whole kingdom be invited to his capital, and that the people of Braya be included therein. At last he sent his ambassador in great pomp and glory to call to his palace the 7th son of Devaki, Balaram, and the 8th son, Krishna, to witness the sports and partake in the wrestling contests and show to the kingdom their dexterity and strength. Thus spoke Kamsa, and called to Akrura, and made him the ambassador that was to bring Krishna and Rama to Mathura. But this also he ordered: when here they are brought, see that the strongest and mightiest wrestlers of my kingdom be brought to match them, and fairly or foully to lay them low. And he added, if your death fails to meet them withal, keep the infuriated elephant close to the gate, so that he in his madness may tread out the life of Krishna at my command. These were his orders, and Akrura, his ambassador, bowing to him, departed to Braha. Chapter 27. The sun was setting in Braha, and Krishna with companions was homeward leading the cows to be milked. The hills were gold-tipped, the chirp of the birds and sleeping echoes fell on the ear, when far in the distance the hoofs of stamping steeds pounding the earth caused the boys to turn. Coming in royal splendor towards them, they beheld a chariot with blazing banners of the colors of the royal house of Mathura. The boys stood in amazement at its nearer the chariot came, but Krishna smiled with his eye full of wisdom, and aslant he looked toward the boys and the cows, and then at Akrura, the ambassador who came in the chariot. At that glance Akrura quickly descended and fell at the feet of Krishna, and saluted him in reverence and worship, for the dart of love that came from Krishna revealed to the heart of Akrura that Krishna was more than human and not less than divine. With that glance his soul was drawn to the soul of him who stood there to receive him and his message, And he knew that the author of life he beheld, and that blessed he was beyond all measure, to be chosen to look on that wonderful face. A moment he lay in the dust at the feet of the youth, Akrura the proud, the inmate of palaces, the counselor and companion of the king and emperor. Then with kindly grace Krishna raised him and embraced him, and led him forth to the house of Nanda, and with his own hands brought rich drinks and choice viands, with the countenance that had on it the glow of the sun, and the beauty that surpassed all the beauty ever seen. And having partaken of the meal with his father and brother and guest, Krishna addressed him thus: O friend, long I knew of this coming of thine, and marveled at its delay. Yet tell them, my kinsmen, the errand of the on which thou wert sent. Then Akrura related to Nanda and the fear-stricken Yasoda the king's message, his plans, and his evil design. A smile of wisdom flitted over the face of Krishna as he nestled close to the side of his mother, and bade her forget her anxiety for him, as none there was in all the world that could harm him. He vowed that even the most dreaded Kamsa was powerless to bring about the evil he planned. But the mother Yasoda, she who had reared and nourished the child at her heart, she who had caressed his lovely baby softness and with fondness saw his first toddling steps, she could not be comforted, nor would her heart cease its beating of pain and terror. And Akrura related how Kamsa in wrath had thrown Devaki and Vasudeva into prison on hearing that Krishna was the eighth son of their union, and Yasoda wept as the thought of the mother who had lost all her sons at the cost of Krishna, and yet had not the blessing of suckling him. Yasoda, most blessed of all women art thou, who nursed the Lord of love as thy son, and fitted wert thou by him to bestow on his baby life thy caresses, and receive the love that flowed from him. Worthy wert thou to croon him to sleep, to bathe the sweet beauty of him who, though he had all there was, yet chose to be soothed and guided and directed by thee in his babyhood. And when to boyhood's estate he grew, and startled all the world by the wonder of his doing, to thee he came as a little child to be loved and petted and soothed of his weeping and fretting. And now when called king of the land, and called king by the hearts of the whole known world, that panted to look upon his wonderful beauty and see the might of his strength, even now close to thy heart he nestles and twines his arms about thy neck, and gazes with love light into thine eyes to comfort thee, and feels a shadow mantle his heart as he banishes the pain from thy brow. For well he knows that no more to thee the forest child he will be, for the world now claims him as its own, in his bigger world an actor he must be. Thus heart to heart they sit, the mother and the foster son, he who was lord of all the world, and she who reared him as a child. End of chapter 27.